All right. Here we go. So, I think I would like to comment on today's events. Because every once in a while I find the courage to spend a day a bit different than usually. Now, I make a choice when I wake up, and sometimes I feel like having like a heavy breakfast or something. But these last couple of days have shown me once more that sometimes luxury is more of a distraction than it actually helps you to get stuff done. So we surround ourselves with all these comfort foods and they make us somehow lazy. So I've realized once more, for example, I really love tahine and I love like nut mousse and something, you know, these kind of things. I like to eat them. I like to eat a lot of them. It's a bit the same as sugar. Sometimes when I don't have them, I really crave for things like tahine. But then the problem is once I have it at home, well, it's probably not going to be a week for me to finish 1 kilogram of tahine. And some people may go through a kilo of tahine in maybe a month or half a year. And once I have this, I just finish it. And usually I finish this together with like some kind of sugar. And for instance, while I was in South Africa, they had a whole kilo, like a huge jar of almond mousse. And that cost me 500 rand. 150 rand were about 10 euros, I think. So I paid 500 rand. I think it was on discount for 400. That makes it like 20 to 30 euros for a jar. It's like quite expensive. If you compare it to 50 rand for like 50 grams of, oh no, 500 grams maybe, or 600 grams of peanut butter, it's like 8 times the price. No local South African, like, you know, the normal people, could ever afford this. And I bought it simply because I had the money and I could spend it. And now you have to think about that. An average South African worker, so the people that work like in supermarkets packing your bags and like in petrol stations filling in your petrol, the average South African person earns per hour something like 12 rand. We calculated that roughly. And that would give the person something like maybe 2,000 to 3,000 rand per month. And from that money, if only one person is earning, you have to feed your family, you have to pay rent, and probably even have a phone or something. So the average South African diet, and with average I mean not the like white rich or black rich people, it's like most of the people. Like there isn't really so much as a middle class. The average person would live on a diet of pap, which is like corn flour, and then you cook it into like a mousse. So it's just energy, but like quite empty. You eat it and you're basically hungry again after at least an hour. At least that's how I always felt. And they usually eat that with like the cheapest meat they can get, which would be chicken. Or they would eat it with like cabbage or maybe beans or something, like quite simple meals. And then you make maybe like a stew, like a vegetable stew. If you're lucky, maybe you get some beef with it. So that's the average person eating, right? And then I came there, and you see, 12 rand per hour doesn't even buy you a pineapple. It's quite insane, isn't it? If I work here in Germany under standard minimum wages, it's like, let's say 9 euros. Just, don't even talk about tax. Maybe I have in the end like 6 euros left, or 5. I can buy maybe 4 to 5 pineapples from that. And the average South African worker works for 1 hour and cannot even buy 1 pineapple. So you see, it's quite ridiculous if I come there as a German person and I had a bursary once. The scholarship for 1 year was 50,000 rand, I think. And then some of the money, I got from my parents. And I would just go just because I could, because was available. I just bought for 500 rand 1 kilo of almond butter. And I would go through it in 9 days. It was the fastest I ever finished it. And I would just sit on like my binge eating times. I would just sit there with a spoon and some honey, and then I would just like go into the almond butter, put honey on top and just eat that. Especially in combination with cannabis, of course, you get these like binge eating attacks. And I would just stuff myself full with this kind of things. And in the end, all I would do then was sit around. And there's this interesting phenomenon which I picked up with first time actually with LSD, that I could go for hours without eating, not even feeling like I wanted to eat or needed to eat, but I had so much energy that I didn't even have to sleep. I could just go for 2 days and go nuts on it. And afterwards, I had a great time of experiences. And I usually did these things on my own because as soon as there's other people involved, they drag me down. So I have my own kind of speed and I have my own kind of way of doing things. So if I want to go really nuts, I often have to do things alone because as soon as there's another person with me, they just shit their pants. And they have all kinds of doubts. And, when I'm on my own, I can just trust myself, and that's much easier than trusting in other people, I feel. I've tried sometimes to guide people, but of course I wasn't really used to the fact that anyone would follow me anywhere. But I know by now that I can. But it's a heavy struggle if people are constantly doubting you, because I know what I'm talking about, because I've done these things like LSD at night and forests alone. So I know I can do this with people, but often people, they just don't trust you, they want to do their own thing. So I've done this once with a kid of about, he was several years younger than me, and I call him a kid because that's what he was, and basically. And we did mushrooms together. Yeah, and he wanted to go off by himself, and it scared the shit out of him because he didn't listen to me. And then he had to make his own experiences, and maybe it was necessary, but you see, he didn't trust me. He could have just stayed there and just enjoyed whatever was happening in the forest, made a fire later on. But if people don't trust me, I can't do much for them. then they have to make their own mistakes, and that's just how it is, because I just handle these situations different than most people. And I've talked about this already, but most people, if you give them 300 micrograms of LSD and drop them somewhere in the forest at night, they would shit their pants, whereas I have the greatest time of my life. And that's just how it is, and that's just, how things stand. But then, people always think they're so smart and they can do these things by themselves, and they think they can be better than you, and they want to show you how awesome they are instead of learning from somebody who knows what he's talking about. And that's just what I don't get. Like, I know what I'm talking about, and yet you don't want to trust me. And that's the same thing I had often with women. Like, they don't want to trust me at all, because they don't trust men because they've been betrayed so often. But they constantly make it your problem. You get in a relationship and they say they want to have a man that they can trust, and that they can like lean on their shoulder and stuff. Well, I can be that, but then all the women are so convinced they have to be like powerful, like, I don't know, have their own businesses and stuff. Well, it's very hard to give a woman stability that actually doesn't want it, that wants to do it herself. But I have very strong beliefs in terms of where whoever wants to be my wife, where this direction is going. And if a woman is not okay with this, then I can't help her, because I have very strong like intuitive knowledge of where my path is leading me. And that woman needs to be okay and aware of this. But for that, of course, I first had to like find my own compass and figure out how to do things and what I want. And if a woman comes now and I see that she's constantly, struggling against my ideas, then it's not really going to work out, because how can I be the compass? How can I set a direction if that woman doesn't want it? And if all these people in the world are being told that, women should be successful. What does it mean to be successful? Like, if I was born a woman in this life, then to me it would be successful to be a mother, because that's what a woman does. A woman is a mother. A woman doesn't have to go off and fight dragons, because a woman needs to be a mother, first of all, and a wife. But if you say that, people tell you that you're like discriminating women against their rights. No, every woman has every right to do what they want. But then there's specific men, you can't both go out fighting dragons. Well, you can do it together in a way, but there's still a difference between men and women, and that's just a fact. And you can't ignore that. So if you, like, on your spiritual path, and then you want to be like a warrior male, right? And you want to be like a chief or something, like a shaman. Then your wife comes along and she also wants to like call all the shots and make all the decisions, because I wanted to be a doctor or whatever. Well, it's very hard. Like, at least, one of you has to follow. And I know from my own experience, I'm not very good at following orders. I'm not. Because I have my own way of doing things. So I know that my wife should be okay with tagging along in some of the cases. Like, when I think that it would be important for us to do something together, like do mushrooms once together alone in the forest, and she just resists me all the time, well, then it's going to be very hard to do anything at all together. Because if she continuously resists me, then I will eventually also resist her. Like, I can go along with a lot of things, but if the other person doesn't like tag along with the things that I want, then what good is a relationship anyway? I know it's going to be struggle all the way. Like, I have certain ideas on how our children should be raised. Like, I don't want them to be, intoxicated by all these governmental ideas. I want them to grow up as free spirits. And I don't want them to be like beaten into submission by these stupid school system rules. So I want to raise 3 children. But if your wife is like, in the system, then it doesn't going to really work. Like, I have completely different ideas on certain things, then it's just going to be a struggle. So I know, for instance, I'm quite spiritual. For me, these things are just clear. Like living in a matrix and such. But if my wife is like fully in there and doesn't trust me with the things I say, she's going to stab me in the back all the time. Like, imagine you're at like family dinners and somebody comes along and attacks you for your ideas, and you try to stand in for it, and your wife will then starts criticizing you as well, then suddenly you're alone. It's not gonna be very pleasant, and I have made these experiences already, that somebody, wanted to be with me or something, but she constantly stabbed me in the back because she didn't trust me, and that's just impossible. So how do you want to grow spiritually if somebody doesn't trust you? So it's always a two-way street, of course. But in some way, if a woman comes along and she wants a man like you, like somebody who has a plan, who knows where to go, then she just has to tag along in some ways. And of course, women don't like to hear that because, they want to be like a man too. But there is still a difference. For example, with Gandhi, her wife saw him as her guru. I don't need to be worshipped, but I need to be taken seriously. And if I should be a man, like the best version of a man that I can be, then there are some decisions that I need to make. Like, somebody has to have the last word. And I want and I need that kind of respect in a family system. And that's just the choice I make. And for that, I'm going to wait for a woman that comes and chooses me and says, I trust you to guide me till the end, because that is what spirituality is about. And a Shakti is like a spiritual wife that accompanies you, that gives advice, but in the end you have to decide. It's what I believe. You are the one, like the active force, the penetrating male energy. And you can't both be that. One of you has to be like more female than male. Thank you.